Welcome to Quiz Time. I'm your quiz master, Sean, and I've got 100 questions for you about the period between the 1920s through the 1940s. This'll be fun. Let's see what we know, what we remember, if we're old enough, and let's have some fun together. What outbreak occurred on Ellis Island in 1921? Drug-resistant infections, typhus, or salmonella? It was a typhus outbreak. What kind of biscuit was created in 1938 by Ruth Graves Wakefield? The chocolate chip cookie, shortbread biscuits, or sandwich biscuits? And those were chocolate chip cookies. Which Hall of Famer was surpassed by Jimmy Foxx's 494th home run in 1940? Roger Hornsby, Hack Wilson, or Lou Gehrig? And that was Lou Gehrig. Where did the masses congregate on VE Day in London? Old Kent Road, Trafalgar Square, or the Tower of London? They congregated at Trafalgar Square. Which 1930s art trend was very popular? Art Deco, American Regionalism, or pop art? And that would be Art Deco. Which book was published by F. Scott Fitzgerald in 1925? Tender is the Night, This Side of Paradise, or The Great Gatsby? And that was The Great Gatsby. In 1928, who was the first female pilot to cross the Atlantic? Helen Dutrow, Amelia Earhart, or Amy Johnson? And that was Amelia Earhart. In 1938 and 1939, which two legendary superheroes made their comic book debuts? Batman and Thor, Superman and Spider-Man, or Superman and Batman? And that would be Superman and Batman. Which RAF squadron was based at Woodhall Spa's Petwood Hotel? The 617, the 817th, or the 217th? It was the 617th. Which prominent band leader vanished in a plane crash in December 1944? Harry Roy, Glenn Miller, or Artie Shaw? And that was Glenn Miller. In 1938, Ladislau Biro invented what? The ballpoint pen, the parking meter, or the electric guitar? And that was the ballpoint pen. Charles Leiper Grigg created what well-known soft drink in 1929? Home Packs, Cola, or 7-Up? He invented 7-Up. What did the 19th Amendment grant in 1920? Women the right to propose, women the right to work, or women the right to vote? It granted women the right to vote. Which nation took home the FIFA World Cup in 1934? Italy, Spain, or France? In 1934, the FIFA World Cup was won by Italy. What was the name of the entertainers that the troops saw? C&D, Ensa, or NAFI? And that would be ENSA. Which well-known sailorman cartoonist Chrysler Seagull created in 1929? Felix, Popeye, or Bugs Bunny? Chrysler Seagull created which cartoon sailor? I am what I am. Popeye, the sailor man. The 1939 film Dark Victory depicted a young heiress who was dying. What was she dying of? Leukemia, lung cancer, or was it a brain tumor? She was dying of a brain tumor. Which musical genre was in vogue in the 1920s? Blues, jazz, or swing? In the 1920s, jazz was in vogue. Which nation held the Summer and Winter Olympics in 1932? The U.S., Canada, or France? Both of them were held in the U.S. in 1932. In the 1920s, whose well-known baseball player had a candy bar named after him? Was it Tris Speaker, Babe Ruth, or George Sisler? It was a Babe Ruth bar. Which town in New Mexico hosted the well-known 1947 UFO sighting? Was it at Roswell? Was it Ecatepec de Morelos or Leon? Roswell, New Mexico. After the passing of whom in 1923 was Calvin Coolidge sworn in as the U.S. President? Was it Woodrow Wilson? Was it Warren Harding? Or was it William Howard Taft? It was Warren Harding. In which nation did a massive flooding event peak in August 1931? Was it India, Russia, or China? It was China. By whom was December 7, 1941 declared a date which will live in infamy? Was that Franklin D. Roosevelt? Was that Winston Churchill? Or was it Harry S. Truman? Franklin D. Roosevelt declared it a day which will live in infamy. In which nation did the 1921 Women's Olympiad open on March 24th? Monaco, Sweden, or Japan? And it was Monaco. In 1946, what new fashion emerged? Blue jeans, sneakers, or the bikini? It was the bikini. Which nation put the first parking meters ever when? United States, Germany, or Switzerland? And that would be the United States. Which nation saw the start of a 3-year violent uprising following the Tulkarm massacre in 1936? Persia, Prussia, or the Palestinian Mandate? And that would be the Palestine Mandate. Where did competitors from 16 countries go to compete in the first Winter Olympics in 1924? Canada, Spain, or France? The first Winter Olympics was in France. Which nation's civil wars saw the brutal and pivotal Battle of the Ebro in 1938? Portugal, Spain, or Mexico? And that would be Spain. Which legendary superhero was developed by Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel? Deadpool, Superman, or Iron Man? And they developed Superman. In Japan, what was the first thing inaugurated in 1927? Was it the first cat, the cable car, or the Asian Underground Passenger Railway? It was the Asian Underground Passenger Railway. Which of these does not represent the 1920s in traditional terms? The Dry 20s, the Jazz Age, or the Roaring 20s? It was not known as the Dry 20s. Which politician was the brains behind the Robin Hood-inspired Share Our Wealth program? Herbert Hoover, Huey Long, or Franklin D. Roosevelt? And that would be Huey Long. What nation was the epicenter of a significant earthquake in September 1923? Was that Japan? Was that Iran? Or was it Turkey? That was Japan. Which African American sportsman made an incredible impression in the 1936 Berlin Olympics? Joe Louis, Jesse Owens, or Babe Ruth? It was Jesse Owens. Which journal underwent a major makeover in the 1930s and became wildly popular with illustrations? Was it Time? Was it Life? Or was it Newsweek? And it was Life magazine. Which of these alphabet soup New Deal initiatives employed artists and writers? The WPA, the CCCs, or the TVA? And that New Deal program was the WPA. In 1942, the United States dropped its minimum draft age from 21 to what? 16, 17, or 18? And the age dropped to 18. In 1947, which manufacturer started manufacturing Italian sports cars? Lamborghini, Alfa Romeo, or Ferrari? And that would be Ferrari. What gas was it the U.S. refused to export to Germany in 1939? Argon, helium, or hydrogen? We would not sell them helium. Who was the lead in the Broadway production of The Jazz Singer? Was that George Jessel, Eddie Cantor, or Al Jolson? And that was George Jessel. Where was Will Rogers, the cowboy philosopher of America, born? Was he born in Texas, Arizona, or Oklahoma? Will Rogers was born in Oklahoma. Which university produced football star Tom Harmon? The University of Washington, the University of Arizona, or the University of Michigan? Yeah, he was from the University of Michigan. Go Blue. First opened in 1931, the Empire State Building. To what extent did it contain stories? How many stories were in the Empire State Building when they opened it in 1931? 100, 102, or 110? There were 102 floors. Which 1946 motion picture stars Clarence as an angel? Citizen Kane, It's a Wonderful Life, or The Maltese Falcon? It's a Wonderful Life, and Clarence got his wings. In the 1940s, which performer had the most #1 Billboard singles? Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, or Jimmy Dorsey? And that would be Bing Crosby. A radio program called The All-American Boy starred Jack Armstrong. Which game did he play? Did he play soccer, baseball, or football? He was a football player. What was the name of the first dummy used by Edgar Bergen? Was it Charlie McCarthy, Mortimer Snerd, or Effie Clinker? The first dummy used by Edgar Bergen was Charlie McCarthy. What was the setting of The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald? Was it set in the Hamptons, on Fox Island, or on Long Island's North Shore? It was set on Long Island's North Shore. Who was the #1 Public Enemy in 1934? Was it John Dillinger? Was it Machine Gun Kelly? Or was it Al Capone? Public Enemy #1 in the U.S. in 1934 was John Dillinger. When the Moon Comes Over the Mountain was whose theme song? Ruby Keeler, Kate Smith, or Rose Marie? That was Kate Smith's theme song. Which Major League Baseball player broke through the color barrier? Was it Jackie Robinson? Was it Hank Aaron? Or was it Willie Mays? It was Jackie Robinson. In the 1940s, which MLB team won the most World Series? The Detroit Tigers, the Cincinnati Reds, or the New York Yankees? And that would be the Cincinnati Reds. Who was 1938's Man of the Year according to Time magazine? Was it Hitler, Stalin, or Churchill? 1938's Time Man of the Year was Hitler. What year was Ford's Model A put into production? Was it 1925, 1927, or 1929? The Model A was put into production in 1927. What was the first name of Al Capone? Is Al short for Alfred, Alphonse, or Albert? His first name is Alphonse Capone. In the 1920s, Primo de Rivera rose to become the dictator of which nation? Mexico, Spain, or Cuba? He was the dictator of Spain. In 1948, who was assassinated? Mahatma Gandhi, Indira Gandhi, or Yitzhak Rabin? In 1948, Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated. What was the number of Jewish deaths in the Holocaust? 6 million, 2 million, or 5 million? 6 million Jewish people died in the Holocaust. Which archaeologist found the Tutankhamun tomb's entrance? Arthur Evans, Howard Carter, or Heinrich Schliemann? King Tut's tomb's entrance was found by Howard Carter. Which federation was formally established in 1921? Was it the League of Nations, the Federation of Labor, or the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics? That would be the USSR. Who was pictured on the cover of Time magazine's debut issue? Joseph G. Cannon, Charles Lindbergh, or Calvin Coolidge? And that was Joseph G. Cannon. What famous monument in New York opened its doors in 1923? The Empire State Building, Yankee Stadium, or George Washington Bridge? And that was Yankee Stadium. In 1943, what toy was invented? The Slinky, the Barbie, or was it Play-Doh? It was the Slinky. Which pandemic claimed between 17 and 50 million lives when it ended in 1920? Was it the cholera pandemic, the malaria pandemic, or was it the Spanish flu? It was the Spanish flu. And who was the Pope in the 1930s? Benedict XVI, Pius XI, or John Paul I? That would be Pius XI. Which nation attacked the Russian Red Army in 1921 in order to annex it to the Soviet Union? Ukraine, Georgia, or Belarus? And that was Georgia. The Common Sense Book of Baby and Child Care was released in 1946 by whom? Dr. Spock, Dr. Freud, or Dr. Drew? That was written by Dr. Spock. Which well-known revolutionary leader died in 1924? Sun Yat-sen, Kemal Ataturk, or Lenin? In 24, Lenin died. Which girls' and boys' names were most popular in the U.S. in the early 1930s? Mary and Robert, Wilma and Fred, or Barbara and John? The names would be Mary and Robert. Which innovation did Philo Farnsworth sell to RCA Victor for $1 million in 1939? The FM radio, the television, or stereophonic recording? And that was the television. In 1947, what was found? The Dead Sea Scrolls, penicillin, or did they find Atlantis? In 1947, the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. In 1925, what technological advancement was first demonstrated? The FM radio, air conditioning, or the television image? That would be the televised image. Which Broadway production took home the 1936 Tony Award for Best Musical? On Your Toes, Babes in Arms, or none of them? The Tonys weren't awarded until 1948. None of them. The Tonys weren't awarded in 1948. Who in 1934 is widely credited for keeping the 20th Century Fox film studio from going bankrupt? Was it Betty Davis? Was it Clark Gable? Or was it Shirley Temple? Shirley Temple kept the 20th Century Fox film from going bankrupt. Of the following, who did not die in 1934? Al Capone, John Dillinger, or Bonnie and Clyde? Al Capone did not die in 1934. How many years of U.S. rule ended in 1946 when the Philippines attained independence? Did the U.S. rule the Philippines for 10 years, 48 years, or 38 years? The U.S. ruled the Philippines for 48 years. What was the largest office building erected in the world in 1943? Was it the Pentagon? Was it the Surat Diamond Bourse? Or was it the Purpud Trade Center? It was the Pentagon. Largest, not tallest. In 1927, two political parties' divergent ideas set off a civil war in which country? Greece, China, or Spain? That was China. Which organization requires all eligible Germans to join in April 1939? The Hitler Youth, the Conservative Party Pain, or the Wehrmacht? That would be the Hitler Youth. What important advancement in science occurred in 1928? Was it the discovery of penicillin, the discovery of vitamin E, or the discovery of insulin? That was the discovery of penicillin. Who was the first king and queen to visit the United States in June 1939? George V and Queen Mary, Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, or George VI and Queen Elizabeth? And that was George VI and Queen Elizabeth. Which year did the first radar-equipped RAF aircraft arrive? 1941, 1942, or 1943? The year was 1941. In which nation were the prehistoric cave paintings at Lascaux found in 1940? Italy, Spain, or France? That would be France. What was the 1949 selling price of the first Polaroid camera? Did the first Polaroid sell for $89.95, $47.80, or $56.17? That was $89.95. Coincidentally, you can get one for the same now. In 1929, what renowned prize was given out for the first time ever? The Grammy Award, the Academy Award, or the Emmy Award? That would be the Academy Award. What year was The Voice of America first on the air? 1950, 1945, or 1942? The VOA began broadcasting in 1942. How long was the Leningrad siege in place before it was lifted in 1944? 100 days, 872 days, or 567 days? The Leningrad siege lasted 872 days. Who played Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll, in the iconic silent picture from 1920? Was it John Barrymore, Charlie Chaplin, or Lionel Barrymore? It was John Barrymore. Who was behind the June 1939 explosions of 3 explosives in London? Japan, the Irish Republican Army, or was it Germany? And that was the Irish Republican Army. Which actors appeared in the beloved silent film Ben-Hur but weren't extras? John Barrymore, Joan Crawford, or Greta Garbo? That was Greta Garbo. What was the inaugural year of the Golden Globe Awards? 1943, 1956, or 1946? The inaugural year was 1943. Who portrayed the lead role in the timeless 1926 film, The General? Charlie Chaplin, Douglas Fairbanks, or was it Buster Keaton? And that was Buster Keaton. In 1920, whose American League team won its first World Series? Was it the New York Yankees, the Cleveland Indians, or the Washington Senators? That was the year the Cleveland Indians won their first World Series. Which beloved 1937 Disney princess movie came out? Bambi, Sleeping Beauty, or Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? In 1937, it was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. What actor passed away at the age of 26 when Saratoga was being filmed? Jean Harlow, Katharine Hepburn, or Irene Dunne? And that would be Jean Harlow. Which kind of guitar was created in 1936 by Paul Tutmark? The classical guitar, resonator guitars, or bass guitars? And that would be bass guitars. Which year saw the formation of the first interracial groupings? 1934, 1935, or 1930? The year was 1935. Which star from the 1930s is regarded as the best dancer in movie history? Fred Astaire, Tyrell Davis, or Mae Clarke? And that's Fred Astaire. And question number 100. Which player's nationality was it that scored the opening goal in the World Cup history? Argentinian? Was he French? Or was he Mexican? The first goal scored in World Cup history was scored by a Frenchman. Thank you for playing Quiz Time. Don't forget to drop your score in the comments section, like and subscribe so you don't miss any more Quiz Time. We'll catch you in the next one.